This is the Purple and Gold Hour, presented by the University of North Alabama Foundation. Your spotlight on the University of North Alabama, featuring conversations with UNA officials and friends of the university. This is your look inside campus. Now your host, the voice of the Lions, Benjamin Ray.
Welcome back into Week 3 of the Purple and Gold Hour, presented by the University of North Alabama Foundation. This is your inside look at the University of North Alabama. I'm Benjamin Ray down in Jacksonville, Alabama at Burgess Snow Field at JSU Stadium. This evening, North Alabama is set to take on the school's oldest rival in Jacksonville State. Kickoff coming up right around 6 p.m. We'll get to that a little later. In this episode of the Purple and Gold Hour, we're talking Year of the UNA Woman. Michelle Eubanks will join us to give us a behind-the-scenes look at how this came to fruition. We'll have a fun roundtable discussion with both Michelle Eubanks and Dr. Jeffrey Bibby on some stories from the Year of the UNA Woman. Then we'll wrap up this episode with a Lion legend and former volleyball and softball coach Andy Jones. So that's our lineup. Let's get right into it on the other side of this break. This is the Purple and Gold Hour, presented by the UNA Foundation.
I knew I wanted to do engineering from Best Robotics that I was in high school. I kind of learned what engineering had to offer, and I knew I was good at problem solving and things like that, good at math and science and stuff. I came to UNA and figured out what it was, what it had to offer. After learning about the program, it was exactly what I wanted to do. This program really prepares you to go into the industry, and it is preparing me for exactly the types of jobs I want to do. The community here is definitely different than other programs. I can call up really any of my professors or email them or just step in their office and knock on the door, and they're always available. And it's really more conducive for learning than other programs where, you're in a huge class or something like that.
I really had some aspirations that maybe they'd go to school here as well, because we're both alumni. We're just thrilled to see all three of our boys in school here.
A view of UNA that I've run into a lot is people say it's just, it's your own backyard, or, it's a little hometown school or something like that. But every school is in somebody's backyard, and there are people that go here and get the exact same internships and the same opportunities, and if not more opportunities, because we're a local school. And it was just something that I knew was a great fit for me.
I've always had an affinity for medicine and taking care of people. I love taking care of kids. Doctors don't really get that personal connection with patients that a nurse would. And that's what I like the most, and that's what I want to provide for other people. I'm majoring in nursing. Specifically, I want to go into pediatrics. My professors here in the College of Nursing are the most amazing professors I've ever had. They actually care about their students. They have all these resources and all these ways of helping. UNA just really goes the extra mile to help students get to where they want to be in life.
Here we go. The Purple and Gold Hour rolls on, presented by the University of North Alabama Foundation. I'm Benjamin Ray, welcoming you back in. Today, we're in Jacksonville, Alabama. North Alabama is set to take on Jacksonville State. It's the third meeting against the Gamecocks since we made the jump to Division I in a series that goes back to 1949, making this North Alabama's oldest rivalry in football. Kickoff coming up at 6 p.m. Brian East will join me live from Burgess Snow Field at JSU Stadium in just a little while. Countdown to kickoff next at 5 p.m. Kickoff slated for 6 p.m. We're ready to kick this show off, and we're going to talk UNA Year of the UNA Woman with Michelle Eubanks, Director of Media and Public Relations at the University of North Alabama. Michelle, thanks so much for joining us.
I am honored, Ben. This is exciting.
First of all, you're the co-producer on this venture. You do a lot of work behind the scenes, so it's great to get you on the show for the first time as well.
Thank you. Yeah, it has been several months in the making, but we officially launched it with the launch of the next UNA magazine in June. And here we are now. The semester has started, so it's an exciting time, and the way we're integrating the theme into standing events on campus.
So we're going to dive a little more into the Year of the UNA Woman in the next segment, but there was some big UNA news that came out recently. The newest U.S. News and World Report ranks UNA as the 13th best public regional university of the South. This is big news, but just how big is this for the university?
It's huge news because it's our third consecutive year to rank in this particular category, and that sets us up next to public and private institutions throughout the Southeast. And so we are rated against them on our cost, on the education we provide, on the cost of living in the area, the colleges, the graduation rates, all kinds of metrics that students and parents both, and whether you're an online or an on-campus learner, a traditional college-age student, or an adult learner, you've got a reason to look at UNA now, because don't take our word for it. I always like to say we don't pay for those metrics with U.S. News and World Report. Those are things that are given to us by independent agents who look at the stats and the categories that we fall into, and they give us these rankings. And so it's very exciting because when you've made this list, you feel like you've sort of made it. And I think it's a very shining example of just the high quality education we provide and how regional in nature that is. So whether you're in Florence or in Lawrenceburg or wherever, you have a reason to take a very good look at UNA and find your educational goals to be met here.
UNA moves up from 17th a year ago. We all love top 25 rankings, just outside the top 10 now. And I think there's just one state school listed above us. And that's another cool fact about this for us as we look at larger schools in the state, other schools are around the area. I mean, UNA rates as one of the top places to go.
It does, for all of the reasons that I outlined. But I honestly believe that because of the trajectory we're on with our exceptional freshman cohort enrollment this fall, we'll have final enrollment numbers at the end of October, but we do anticipate an 11th straight semester of growth. But because of all of those metrics, we are becoming that institution of choice for so many people, and I predict we're going to break the top 10 next year.
That's super exciting. A couple of more rankings. 11th best college for veterans amongst regional universities. We talked to Doug McClain last week from Veteran Affairs. I know he has to be very excited about that. I know he does a great job. 21st in undergraduate teaching. I want to go back. First episode, we had Dr. Kitts on, and he sort of made this statement. When I got here, UNA was known as the best kept secret. Well, the secret's out. And how far does this drive this home that people are still learning about how great UNA is?
Yeah, exactly. It gives us that broader platform. It's one thing for folks in the Shoals to know us. It's another thing for the folks in Alabama and North Alabama to know us. It is quite a different story for the region to know us, and that's exactly what this does for us. But I will also say about the rankings for our military service and veterans, you're exactly right. The services and the opportunities we have for returning veterans to make their educational dreams come true here, they're just second to none. And we have all kinds of ways for them to take up the GI Bill and the other opportunities that are available at the federal level. So we put a lot of work into that. And, of course, too, the ROTC cadets. It's a bunch of fun for those folks, and they do an incredible job representing the university.
They certainly do. It's a very exciting time for the University of North Alabama. All right, Michelle, we're going to talk UNA Year of the UNA Woman coming up next. We're going to have Jeffrey Bibby join us shortly. But first off, before we take this break, give us a little bit of insight about this, about what this initiative means and what it is.
So the sesquicentennial is what we started to call it, and believe me, that's a mouthful, and we'll do spelling lessons later. How about that,
That
Ben?
sounds good.
But the Year of the UNA Woman is a celebration of 150 years of admitting women to UNA. And again, it's exceptionally important and significant because it is establishing UNA's history as the first in the Southeast to do this 150 years ago. We had a choice that we could make by doing it, but as our heart and our roots were in the educational component and educating teachers to be in the classroom, it made all the sense in the world that we would do that, and we did. And so 150 years ago, we were progressive in our thoughts about how we could educate future students and leaders and teachers, and we did that by admitting women. And the first class where we had women graduate, there were 4 people in that class, 3 of those were women. And so it's an exceptional bit of history for the university and a place that we can stake our claim and be very proud as we move into the rest of this year.
That's very exciting. We're going to dive into this a little more, talk about the background, some of the history here in just a moment when we return. We'll be back after this. Michelle Eubanks will stick with us. This is the Purple and Gold Hour presented by the University of North Alabama Foundation.
My whole life has been about making an impact. Not just on the field, but in the world around me. My high school Spanish teacher helped me find my true calling.
To educate and serve others all over the world.
I used to think the biggest college was the best place to start, but my search brought me to North Alabama. At UNA, my story matters, and so does my calling.
I realized that there was a lot of just business, just the day-to-day business of the chamber that I did not feel particularly comfortable in. There was an opportunity at UNA to pursue my MBA and thought that it might be a really good idea just to bolster that side of my education. Professors were so understanding and willing to work with us. I realized then I had made the right choice, that UNA was the correct institution for me. I've never talked to anyone who's gone forward with their education who regretted that decision. It's not been easy every day, but totally worth it at all times.
With UNA being student-oriented, I know I will get smaller classes. The teachers are very dedicated in helping me understand the material. I feel like they really care that I succeed. If you're hesitant about whether you should or shouldn't get your master's, but you know that you want or need to, you should just do it, because you don't know where it's going to take you. And you don't know until you get on that path.
I came and visited UNA and I saw the atmosphere and the student life, which really fit me and I knew that I would be able to do once I got here at UNA. If I had to pick one thing about UNA that made me want to come here, it would just be campus and the life that you see on campus. With UNA just being so close, that's not what I thought that I wanted. And so when I came and I realized I'm still going to have the same opportunities as someone who went to a larger university, that was one of the things that drew me in.
I'm Benjamin Ray, and you're listening to the Purple and Gold Hour presented by the University of North Alabama Foundation. North Alabama and Jacksonville State getting set to play football here in just a little bit, but we got a while before we get to that ball game. In this episode of the Purple and Gold Hour, we're talking the year of the UNA woman. Of course, Michelle Eubanks is back with us, and we're excited to welcome in Dr. Jeffrey Bibby, the Associate Dean, College of Arts, Sciences, and Engineering. Dr. Bibby, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
First off, tell listeners a little bit about your background and how long you've been with UNA.
Well, I came to UNA in 2008 to the history department, and I teach British history here at UNA as well as history education, so I work with a lot of our future history teachers. So I've been there. I had a wonderful opportunity to serve as the department chair in 2014 and have been in the dean's office as the associate dean, working with Dr. Baird for the last 2 years. This is the start of my third year here.
So let's jump back into the year, the UNA woman. In 1872, the State Normal School at Florence, now the University of North Alabama, opened its doors to women, making Alabama's oldest four-year university, the first state-supported co-educational institution south of the Ohio River, and the oldest co-educational teachers college in the USA. So we talked to Michelle about the inspiration behind it, but give us your side of it, too, how you came into the picture with all of this.
Well, in some ways, my involvement in this goes back to 2013, when we had the opportunity to mark the 50th anniversary of the integration of the institution, when Wendell Gunn became a student here on September the 11th, 1963. And at that moment, the history department was very involved in that event, and we had this, phenomenal opportunity to honor Dr. Gunn's legacy and to hear his story from his own mouth and what his experiences were as a student in 1963. But then really how that had shaped him as an individual, for the 50 years that followed. And we realized at that moment we have a lot of other milestones in our university history that we need to consider and we need to try to encapsulate and understand. But most critically, we need to commemorate and celebrate. So that was, for me, in some ways where this ball started rolling. And then as we got a little closer to the anniversary, my dear friend who's sitting here with us, we got to chatting about what this needed to be and what it would look like. And when Dr. Gunn came back, we had an individual person that we could talk to and we could capture his history and have him share that with students. And we were able to do these wonderful projects with him and are still working with him. This one was going to be a little bit different because it's a much bigger concept. We can't go back to those original three graduates. They have long since left us. But it's also just a much bigger story, and one that when we think about that first, in 1872, of being the first in the South to say, women are welcome here as students, we had to find a different way to approach it. So, I've been thinking about it, but we've really been working on this now, I guess, 2-3 years? But it's been in the back of my mind since about 2013.
And Michelle, from your perspective on the university side, what did it take to get the university behind this?
It was a very wonderful conversation we had with Provost Alexander. Dr. Bibby and I were with him, and it happened exactly as detailed in the latest issue of the magazine. We were sitting there. We were there for another reason. I don't even remember the reason we were there, but we were there for another reason. And one of us said, "Hey, this is happening," and he said, "Great, you too, you got it." And we were like, "Wait. Whoa.
That wasn't the plan."
But at the same time, I'm deeply honored that we were entrusted with this, because it tells me that at that level too, at the provost level and at the president's level, they see and understand the value in this, particularly as we know our current stats are that 60% of our enrolled students are women. So clearly there's an indicator that this will resonate not only with the students we have now, but with those we hope to enroll in the future. And at all levels, whether they're 18 or they're 38 or 58, it doesn't matter. Enroll and enjoy and find your future here. So I think that's what did it for me, that we had this opportunity, and as Dr. Bibby has said, it casts our net very wide, because our female alumni that's redundant. Our alumni are everywhere, and they're in California and Alaska and globally. And so this story can and will resonate with them as we get throughout the year. And that's the story that I feel like we need to tell. So again, we're not just the best kept secret. We are the South's best institution for women.
Well, and of course, having talked to the provost, who was, absolutely behind this and has committed diversity as one of his big initiatives on campus. But everybody we've talked to, it doesn't matter whether it's been students from Panhellenic or faculty, the academic deans. We met with the executive council. We've talked to members of the Alumni Association. Everybody's excited about this. And that's been particularly reassuring for us, because while we are personally passionate about it, we know that our personal passion is not going to be enough to carry off a year.
Right.
But to see everybody else embrace this has been particularly amazing. And for everybody to interpret it in their own way, finding a way to celebrate this theme through, whether it's music or athletics, academic initiatives.
Logo updates.
The stories that we're telling about, graduates and future students. Everybody finds their way to connect.
I got a lot I want to get into with this. And Dr. Bibby, I think this will be kind of your area of specialty, if you will, but historical perspective. Sum it up what this means for UNA on that side of things.
Well, it's this notion of firsts. I think that's the key issue. The 18th century and 19th century were not exactly times in which women were valued, respected, and encouraged to participate in civic or, for that matter, social life without horrific restrictions. But we do see in the latter part of the 19th century that women are taking a much greater place in the education of young people. And as we start to see the formalization of education in the United States and around the world, we know that women have always been the primary educators of our children, because that education was taking place at home, and it was the bedtime stories and reading the Bible and educating children on just their simple mathematics and simple reading. But that's not going to be enough to sustain an industrial economy that we have emerging in the United States, especially after the Civil War. So the formalization of education becomes important. By the 1870s, we realize that we've got to do more than just have a high school diploma, which is all you really needed to teach school anywhere in the United States, but especially in the South, and that there needs to be more. So the first model was actually these young teachers, future teachers and current teachers coming to UNA, or what will become UNA, and watching experts teach and taking that back to their schools. So, it goes from very much a one-room schoolhouse, maybe in a little town just south of here, to coming and watching that one-room school experience in Wesleyan Hall, and then they take it home. But what it says in a much greater sense is that we see the value in everyone having an education, that it moves beyond just the elite male that deserves the opportunity to read and write and be educated. And we've really argued that education is universal, and that to provide that universal education, it's got to be a bit more all hands on deck. And so women take a much greater role. That continues through the early part of the 20th century. And, you know, UNA, we forget we're also celebrating 100 years of Kilby this year. We don't want to forget that milestone because Kilby is really a model for education that is seen across the United States. We're one of the forerunners of this laboratory model where you bring kids to be guinea pigs and the professors, and I'm using my air quotes there that you can't see on the radio, are actually teaching those kids and being watched. Just like our current education students go and watch these expert teachers at Kilby today, that's exactly what these future UNA students will be doing. So we open that door to the idea of universal education, not just for women at the level of higher education, but really the idea that education at all levels should be available to all people. I think for me where it becomes special is that as a university we continue opening those doors. We don't just open it based on gender in 1872. We know that there's still barriers, particularly when it comes to race, and that barrier gets to come down in 1963. So at that point we can say truly the opportunity for education is available to everyone regardless of gender and regardless of race.
And Kilby is the last laboratory school in the state of Alabama. So it's a significant historical hallmark.
And we have schools that come all the time to look at what we're doing at Kilby and realizing just how valuable a model that is.
So many great things happening here on campus. Michelle, I want to jump back over to you, and we've talked about the excitement on campus through this, but what sort of feedback are you getting from news outlets, alumni as well, as more initiatives are launched like this?
Sure. We have had an incredible response. AL.com featured a week of our alumni stories across their social platforms. We've had other responses from different outlets and magazines, news and print and radio. They want to know more about this again because it is half of the story of education. So it just happens to be at UNA, and that's why we want to celebrate it. As far as alumni goes, when that magazine came out, my email and my voicemail box flooded with people who wanted to make sure that not only we remembered, but we knew this person or what this woman did or how this woman changed their life. And all of that needs to be collected and archived and salvaged so that we can remember that well beyond this very special anniversary. We can look to it at year 200 and 250, and we can always remember that that's the foundation of our history.
That's a great segue for what I want to talk about when we come back. I know you two have encountered just some amazing stories from past students, from things UNA has accomplished, and we're going to tell some of those stories when we return. The Purple and Gold Hour, presented by the University of North Alabama Foundation, continues when we return.
I knew I wanted to do engineering from Best Robotics that I was in high school. I kind of learned what engineering had to offer, and I knew I was good at problem solving and things like that, good at math and science and stuff. I came to UNA and figured out what it was, what it had to offer. After learning about the program, it was exactly what I wanted to do. This program really prepares you to go into the industry, and it is preparing me for exactly the types of jobs I want to do. The community here is definitely different than other programs. I can call up really any of my professors or email them or just step in their office and knock on the door, and they're always available. And it's really more conducive for learning than other programs where you're in a huge class or something like that.
I really had some aspirations that maybe they'd go to school here as well because we're both alumni. We're just thrilled to see all three of our boys in school here.
A view of UNA that I've run into a lot is people say it's just, it's your own backyard, or, it's a little hometown school or something like that. But every school is in somebody's backyard, and there are people that go here and get the exact same internships and the same opportunities, and if not more opportunities because we're a local school. And it was just something that I knew was a great fit for me.
I've always had an affinity for medicine and taking care of people. I love taking care of kids. Doctors don't really get that personal connection with patients that a nurse would. And that's what I like the most, and that's what I want to provide for other people. I'm majoring in nursing. Specifically, I want to go into pediatrics. My professors here in the College of Nursing are the most amazing professors I've ever had. They actually care about their students. They have all these resources and all these ways of helping. UNA just really goes the extra mile to help students get to where they want to be in life.
This is the Purple and Gold Hour presented by the University of North Alabama Foundation. I'm Benjamin Ray, keeping the show rolling. North Alabama and Jacksonville State coming up right around the corner. But right now on the Purple and Gold Hour, we're talking the year of the UNA woman. Michelle Eubanks and Dr. Jeffrey Bibby join me. And we've talked about the historical significance, the national recognition we're getting for this. Now, I want to dive into some of the cool stories that you guys have learned. The UNA Magazine issue, I guess, that came out last spring, I believe, was just jam-packed full of stories. First off, a great rundown of the work you guys did behind the scenes. But Michelle, some of the articles you wrote, what are some of the great things you learned from this?
There are two that really stand out to me for their significance for the university, much more broadly than just the campus itself. And one I will say is Ann Berry, who graduated in 1978 with a secondary education degree. And her story, you can see her featured very early on in the magazine in the Q&A. And she's very clear that it was a confluence of events at the university when she was a senior and Robert Galat was the president that allowed her to take the path she took so that she is now the Secretary of the Senate. This is a huge, huge step for her. She's only, I think, the 8th woman ever to hold this position and the first African American to do so. To say that I would be proud to know this person, regardless of where she graduated, is an understatement. But because I also share the fact that we graduated from UNA, I feel doubly proud. And I think it's something that all of our alumni base can be proud of, as well as our current students. She is, in fact, the Lifetime Achievement winner. She's one of our very top Homecoming Award winners. She was elected by a group of peers on campus for this incredible achievement she's had in her life. We're so excited to celebrate her when she comes to campus to receive this award. She won't be here at homecoming because, of course, the Senate, they're a little busy.
Doing important stuff.
We're going to let the federal government run, okay? All right, just so we're clear about that. So we're going to welcome her back in December and give her a very special honor when she's on campus later this semester. And I think she's going to be spending some time with students, which I know is very important to her because her story is critical. It's simply a matter of being open to what you can learn and do. And she's a secondary education major. She was not political science or history, but she has ended up in this incredible role, and she is very much a mentor and friend to UNA, and she has not been back to this campus since she graduated. She can't wait. Of course, life took her in a different direction. The other story that really stands out to me that I absolutely love is the story about Holtz Leather and their vice president, Becca Christian. Her story as an alum of the university, she graduated from UNA. She went to work for this entrepreneurial company in Huntsville. She worked her way up, and she now is the vice president at Holtz Leather, which is in Huntsville. I called them up out of the blue, really, literally, because Dr. Bibby and I were sitting in his office admiring a laptop case. And so he was like, this would be fun.
It's a great purchase.
It's a great purchase. And so I called him up, I think, later that week, and I spoke with the lady, Sherry Jarnigan. Hey, Sherry, she had no idea this was our story. She had no idea we were 72 miles away. I said, okay, well, let's do this. She never hesitated. We sent her the adapted logo. She made this whole thing happen, and then we decided to feature them in the magazine. And that's when she told me, well, our vice president went to UNA. I had no idea. And so she becomes this face, really, of all of our alumni. As an individual who got her start here, she worked her way up. She was a part of this entrepreneurial company, which, if that does not scream College of Business and Technology, I don't know what does. And we have this wonderful partnership now with this homegrown company in Huntsville with these incredibly beautiful products. The synergies there just make my mind explode.
Well, and these are the stories that keep coming about. It's these people who have been entrepreneurs, they've been trailblazers, they've been pioneers, and they're contemporary stories. We can also go back through this 150 years and find just as many stories, whether it's from the 19-teens, 20s, the late 19th century, but it's that same story over and over again. Somebody who, through hard work, determination, an openness to creativity and new opportunities, grabs onto it, and their story just takes them all over the place. Mm-hmm. And these are the things that we're teaching our students in the classroom today, is how to be creative thinkers, how to be problem solvers, how to be entrepreneurs. And these are stories that we can point to them and say, somebody who sat in this seat 5 years ago, 25 years ago, 50 years ago, did the same thing. If they can do it, you can do it.
And I love the fact that they were working away quietly. You know, I mean, these people, Becca was just doing her thing, and then we show up and basically blow her world up. But Anne the same way. I mean, she's just doing her thing, moving up the ladder. I am amazed at how that worked out, and that UNA is the connecting link. I love that.
And I want to talk a little more about Ann Berry, the 8th woman and the first African-American Secretary of the Senate, as you just mentioned, but not just for the UNA Year of the Woman, if you will, but that can resonate with everybody at UNA, that you can still go on, hey, I didn't go to a huge school, but someone from the University of North Alabama is doing something great like that.
Without question. And I think that's exactly the story when she is back on campus she will share. It didn't matter. None of that mattered. She answered the question. She made herself available. The president at the time was a big fan of hers and helped her, as our current president does with students too. Be that person. Allow yourself to be open to what that can do.
Yeah, well, and I'm going to actually kind of contradict you a little bit there, Benjamin, because I'm going to say I think UNA is the place where those things can happen.
That's right.
Because we still are an institution that prides ourselves on getting to know our students. We know our students by name. We know their stories. We know where they're from, and we have a sense of where they want to go. But through those relationships, and whether it's President Kitts, who knows an awful lot of these 8,560 students by name,
Agreed.
Dr. Alexander, the deans, but the faculty especially, and many of our staff, they know these people and can say, hey, have you ever thought about this? Or, you need to connect with so-and-so, or I've got this great opportunity or this wonderful project. And I think sometimes at institutions like ours, we have a greater chance of making those types of phenomenal connections happen. And sometimes those great leaps, much more of a possibility than at institutions that have 30, 40,000 students, or, some Ivy League school where you're working with 6 graduate students instead of seeing a single professor. Those are things that I think we do uniquely well here. And to me, it's one of the best parts about teaching here is we get to see those things happen all the time.
Right.
Now, Dr. Bibby, some of your favorite stories that you've learned while researching this.
Oh, gosh. Narrowing it down is where the problem is. But, one of the things that I've been able to help with is the creation of a new mural that's going to be in Collier Library. And if your listeners have not had a chance to see the timeline up there, that's the life of Wendell Gunn that we commissioned in 2013 as part of the commemoration of our integration. That's going to be coming down, and it's going to be replaced by this Year of the UNA Woman. It's finding some of these stories, some of our very first students. It's learning about, I had a great story from a friend of mine, Dean Donna Lafort, who's retired from UNA. Turns out her grandmother went to UNA back in the 19-teens because she was teaching in Falkville, which is in Morgan County. And she was coming over on the weekends in the summer to take classes at UNA to be a better school teacher. And then to think that her granddaughter, years and years later would end up being a dean of education here. I mean, talk about an interesting story. It's the multi-generational stories.
Yes.
Jana Beaver, who's currently the associate dean in the College of Business and Technology, she is not the first in her family to have graced the halls of UNA. I mean, multiple generations. We have a wonderful scholarship in the history department, the Susan Kirkman Vaughn Scholarship. And her granddaughters still live here in town. And we were able to connect with them and learn a little bit more about their grandmother, not just as one of the first female historians at UNA and one of the first prominent female historians in the Deep South, but as a grandmother and as a mother to their father, and this story of just living here in Florence and the quirky little things about being in a boarding house. Some of those have been to me the most fun. I'm also excited, though. Michelle and had the great opportunity to be part of the Handy Festival this year. Hollis was the opening act. I'm a little prejudiced because I also taught them when they were students here at UNA. They were phenomenal. That, to me, is the next generation of stories.
That's right.
They're on the cusp, and anybody who's listened to them knows that they have a very bright future ahead of them. So it's not just the stories we've learned about. It's also kind of getting to watch and see what we can predict. I think that's the next story. Those are fun.
Yeah.
We're talking the Year of the UNA Woman. All right, UNA.edu, there's some great resources out there where people can go and find more information. You guys were doing a lot of this work during the pandemic when we were Zooming, having meetings and everything. What's it been like now seeing it come to life on campus, some of the face-to-face interactions?
The thing that I like the most is the signage that's up because, you know, Jeffrey and I were like, it feels like it's happening, but we're the only ones who know it. And then all of a sudden, these amazing signs were unleashed on the side of Collier Library. The first time signage had ever been placed there. And now I see that there's a vision for signage to be there through the long term. It's a way to advertise these things. But wow, how awesome that it was like this. But, you know, to your point, Ben, yes, we did have to meet with the task force via Zoom, and it's rough and tumble to get 25 people on Zoom, but that's what we did, and we had to do it, and we had to keep it safe. But that didn't, I don't think that extinguished or diminished the spirit and the excitement about it in any way.
Definitely, and we've been extremely fortunate to work with a phenomenal team of people from across campus, faculty and staff, administration, members of the Alumni Association, students, who have all put in as many hours as we have, and we couldn't be doing what we're doing without them. But I think in some ways the pandemic maybe made it even more special because we had an opportunity when we launched the UNA magazine in June to actually get those people in a room together, in some cases for the first time in 18 months, and to see familiar faces that had always been in their little Hollywood Squares corners. You know, it was nice to be together and to be able to celebrate what we were doing, to feel that energy in a different way. I agree with Michelle. The first time I walked out of my office and got to see the signs on Collier Way, it became really real. Our Collier Library, it was really, I was like, this is happening.
Yeah.
So I think in some ways the pandemic was actually a blessing for us because I think it's made it even more special. Now that we're able to be back on campus, we're able to be with each other, to have many of the events that we've been talking about and always kind of planned with just a little bit of reticence, thinking, oh, are we going to get to do this? And now we really see that we can.
Okay, last thing. You're the UNA woman. What's next? What's planned next with it?
Ooh, that's a perfect segue, actually. So in the fall, we were very specific that we thought that it's best to integrate the theme into standing events. Largely because of the pandemic. If we did have to stop something or delay something, we weren't putting a lot of time and energy into planning something wholly new and brand new for this. The only new thing was the launch of the magazine, but there was that bigger, broader umbrella. So homecoming and having a full female spate of female winners. The halftime show and Dr. Jones's very, very generous use of all female singers and songwriters to comprise that event. Different things through the School of the Arts and compositions there. It's
One Book
One Book
is a female author this year, which is a program we primarily focus on freshmen. We have the new mural that's going to go up in Collier Library. Our commencement speakers, both in August and December, are women. Michelle Nelson, who's the Associate Dean in the Honors College, was as the Eleanor Gonder winner for Phi Kappa Phi Teaching Award, was able to be the commencement speaker. So lots of things happen in the fall that I think are part of our regular calendar of events. It's in the spring where things are going to get a lot more interesting and a lot busier. We've got Founders Day coming up in January the 11th, which is a new tradition on our campus, going to be quite exciting. And then March is Women's History Month. So we're going to take March by storm. If you don't know about the Year of the UNA Woman, if you get through the month of March, then I don't know how you've made it that far without knowing what we're doing.
So that will involve the film festival. So in the span of 1 week, Ben, we will have the film festival, which we obviously needed to delay because of the Delta variant this fall. So it will take place, and then we will wrap up that same week with what Jeffrey lovingly termed the Weekend of Women, which I call it the WOW weekend.
The WOW.
Wow.
But you've got the lighting of the fountain, and you've got panel discussions, and you've got a very specific and niche enrollment
Future Lions
Preview Day, right, Future Lions Day. And then, a wonderful event that's scheduled to take place at the Tennessee Valley Arts Center. So everything is about the college. And Rachel Womack, she's going to come back to campus.
Oh, that's great.
For this incredible concert in Norton Auditorium. And we cannot wait to begin advertising ticket sales for that because she is so excited, too. I mean, when she found out about this, she has she's like, yes, what can we do to make this happen? So she worked her schedule around, and so she'll be the highlight Friday night at the concert in Norton Auditorium. Then we'll get up and have preview day for our Future Lines the next day, and then we'll go out and do some more things on Saturday night. But we hope to survive it, quite frankly. But at the same time, that is a very key event. And then at the very end of the year, we will have in June an academic conference highlighting women in academia, looking ahead and what that looks like. And then we will have a completion event, saying, hey, we made it, but we've got other events on the horizon, because I don't want to steal any thunder from this one, but there's the university's bicentennial that's coming up. Yeah. This is a great blueprint for that. And then we've got the 50th anniversary of being known as the University of North Alabama. So I think we're setting a really very wonderful precedent, but it's a full-bodied spring.
And there's something for everybody.
Yes.
We're going to have great events for the family. We're going to have wonderful opportunities for future UNA students to be on our campus and see the wonderful things that are happening. Highlight the academic achievements of our faculty, graduate students, and undergraduates, and be part of that conversation. I mean, back to what we said at the very beginning, that the historical milestone here is that we were a huge first in the Southeast, and we want to continue to be a source of firsts in education. And so we want to be part of that conversation.
This has been a fun conversation. I know that we will be doing this again at some point on this show. Thank you both very much for the time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ben.
Let's take a time out. The Purple and Gold Hour continues when we return.
I came to UNA and figured out kind of what it was, what it had to offer. After learning about the program, it was exactly what I wanted to do. This program really prepares you to go into the industry, and it is preparing me for exactly the types of jobs I want to do. People say it's just, it's your own backyard, or, it's a little hometown school or something like that. But every school is in somebody's backyard, and there are people that go here and get the exact same internships and the same opportunities, and if not more opportunities, because we're a local school. And it was just something that I knew was a great fit for me.
I've always had an affinity for medicine and taking care of people. I love taking care of kids. Doctors don't really get that personal connection with patients that a nurse would. And that's what I like the most, and that's what I want to provide for other people. I'm majoring in nursing. Specifically, I want to go into pediatrics. My professors here in the College of Nursing are the most amazing professors I've ever had. They actually care about their students. They have all these resources and all these ways of helping. UNA just really goes the extra mile to help students get to where they want to be in life.
This is the Purple and Gold Hour presented by the University of North Alabama Foundation. I'm Benjamin Ray, back with you. A special treat. We're inside of Flowers Hall for this interview. It's actually Tuesday night when we're recording this. UNA Volleyball is getting set to play Alabama A&M. And in a show where the theme is the year of the UNA woman, there's no better setting, no better person to have on to talk UNA athletics than Andy Jones, a member of the UNA Athletic Hall of Fame, inducted in 2008. Listen to this. 16 years as volleyball coach, 3 Gulf South Conference championships, 11 years as softball coach, 3 GSC softball championships. She's won more conference championships than any coach in any sport in school history. Andy Jones, the Lion legend, thanks for chatting with us here on the Purple and Gold Hour.
Thank you, Ben. And anytime I hear that, I always get a little sick, because it should have been 10 conference championships, and we were one short of it. So, and that's in volleyball and softball combined. And it was just it was a great run when we were just getting started in the GSC and in NCAA, and just a pleasure. I just had the pleasure of coaching so many great young ladies and formed those bonds and those friendships that have lasted through the years.
I always like asking, where are your championship rings?
Well, at that time, Ben, they would only allow us to get one. And so I have one in my little jewelry box at home. So,
well, we need to get you some backlogged championship rings. So, Andy, I want to talk about the year of the UNA woman, from your playing days here at UNA to your coaching days to now being a fan to being a broadcaster with me. How can you sum up just how far female athletics have come at the University of North Alabama?
It is absolutely incredible when I see what it has come from me being a player here, back in 72 to 76, and the things that we went through in the 80s and the early 90s, and just the changes that took place mid 90s and now into the 2000s and on forward. It's just night and day. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. The growth of women's sports, and just the things now that they're afforded, and the things that the travel, the uniforms, all of this that they get to experience, and the scholarships. It's just a great thing to see.
Let's go back to the beginning. A 4-year volleyball letterman, 3 years on the tennis program. Who are the coaches that impacted you early on?
Well, I can't say enough about what Nuna Kennard did for volleyball in this area and in the state of Alabama. And she actually she coached me through high school, and then she actually ended up coming here and coaching my 3rd year in school volleyball. And then Don McBrayer and what he did throughout the time I was here. He came in, and he was a young guy out of Sanford, and he was so enthusiastic, and he got a badminton program started, and we played badminton. We had a blast. We'd travel to tournaments and that sort of thing. And then and I played tennis for Nancy Vance, and she too was a trailblazer, and Gay Sievers, and just different ones who were teachers also in the PE department, but then took on that added responsibility of coaching. And I just appreciate so much what they did for women's sports at that time.
What was it like getting your foot in the door as a coach once you finished up playing?
Well, it was really neat, because I finished up in 76, and I actually stayed an extra year as a graduate assistant and coached the volleyball team that next year as a graduate assistant. And it was kind of weird because I was coaching girls that I had played with, so it was sort of an unusual situation. But really, I think developed at that time. I really didn't know that's what I wanted to do, and but that sort of put the bug in me. And then I went down to the University of Alabama and got to work some with their volleyball team, and then it just happened that when I graduated in 79, the job came open. Had a good friend that I had been playing softball with that was on the team, and she was like, "Andy, this job's open. Please think about it." And just what a great opportunity. And I think Bill Jones was the athletic director at the time, and it had been in the PE department, and Mike Livingston was the head at that time, and he gave me opportunity. Bill Jones gave me opportunity. Dr. Galat. I just can't say enough about what a privilege and a blessing it was to work for somebody like him, who was so enthusiastic about girls' sports at that time, and really encouraged and promoted, and was such an encouragement to me through the years.
You had an unbelievable run in the 80s, and I really want to highlight this. As a coach, you won a Gulf South Conference championship every season from 1982 to 1987 in volleyball, softball, some years in the same year. I'm going to hit on that in just a second, but 9 total during that stretch. What's it like now to look back and reflect on that run?
It's amazing to me to think about what we accomplished during that time, and that this group of athletes that we had through that time, that they set the tradition that still goes on today, and that people like Matt Peck and Stephanie Radecki followed suit and accomplished great things in their tenures, and then what Ashley Cozart has done as the softball coach, and what Jeremy Reese did when he was here. That's people that have carried on the tradition that started back in the 80s, and it warms my heart, and it thrills me that it means something to them to carry that on.
Talking with Andy Jones, member of the UNA Athletic Hall of Fame, former volleyball coach, softball coach, won more Gulf South Conference championships than any coach in school history in any sport. I want to talk about 2 magical years, 1985, 86. then 86, 87. You won volleyball and softball in the same season each time. And if people go back, football, I think, made the national championship in 86. Basketball was making some Final Four runs as well. Just what was it like in the athletic department with all that success happening everywhere?
It was just a great time for us because we had been just recently recognized by the NCAA. Women's sports had been, and had gone into the Gulf South Conference, and just to be having that opportunity to compete for championships just really meant a lot to the players and to me. And we just tried to make the most of every opportunity that we had.
Now, I want to dive into that a little more as well. The journey for female athletics, getting it to where it is today, what was it like in those early days?
Well, it was difficult, and it was, I think of myself through high school, and now it's kind of, the popular thing to be in sports for girls. It was not at that time, and you were kind of weird and thought is kind of different, but we all, when we came here, we were playing because we loved the game and we just loved competing, and we weren't on scholarships, and those early days with the volleyball program, not necessarily all of those girls were on scholarships, but they were playing something that they loved, and as we went through the 80s, things would get a little bit better. Things we would be recognized a little bit more. I always felt like we had teams good enough during that time to get national recognition, but we never had the funds to travel like we needed to be seen, to get that national recognition. And those girls were certainly good enough athletes and good enough teams in volleyball and softball that recognition could have been there, but it just didn't happen. And then as we went on into the late 80s, early 90s, I realized at that time things needed to change. Things weren't progressing as they needed to be. And Title IX had happened back in like 1972. And some schools, jumped right in, did what they needed to do. Things were a little bit slow in the South in moving in the direction that they needed to go. And so UNA went through a Title IX suit, and I saw great change take place 94, 95, 96 as that all came about. And then after that, things just took off, and changes that needed to happen as far as coaches having assistants, coaches not having to drive the bus on travel, things like that, dressing room facilities, court time, things like that. All of that began to change as that came about, and needed to. And things now, you see the equality that's there, and fortunately it's there, and wish it had been there all along, but it's there now, and that's the best thing that could be for all of them.
You mentioned that the recognition players weren't getting them. Now you fast forward at the Division I level. Softball's kind of renowned as just a power in this region. Women's basketball beat Vanderbilt in their first ever Division I game. Does it put a smile on your face when you see that success now today?
It really does. I just think, wow, how it's come along and where we are now. It's just, for Ashley to have done what they did in winning the national championship Division II, that meant so much to me, because I was part of starting the softball program back in '83, and then to be able to be here to see that, it just meant the world. And I just can't say enough good things about her and what she's brought to the program, and just the way she conducts herself, the way she coaches her athletes, the kind of people that she brings in. It's just been great to watch. And I think that, and what Missy has done with basketball, they just have been outstanding, and I think she'll continue to grow and build the name of UNA across the country.
Wrapping up our conversation with Andy Jones here on the Purple and Gold Hour. Now, I got to ask you, broadcasting, you've been with me on ESPN Plus 3, whatever you want to call it, for the last 3-4 years doing softball and volleyball with me. Do you like this a little more than coaching?
Well, I can't say I like it more than coaching, no.
Now, I got to tell a quick story. Our first ever ESPN broadcast was in 2018, I believe it was. It was a volleyball game. And everything that went wrong could have gone wrong. Every tech issue that we could have had, we had to go live instead of pre-recording our open. We had to do a little mid-court twirl, if you will,
right
after we were on camera. I know I was nervous. You were as calm as you could have been, but have you thought about how cool it is for you to be a part of that big moment as well?
It was. It was so special to be a part of the first ESPN Plus broadcast and to do it with you. It's just been something that I couldn't have imagined, and I just enjoy this so much. You do such a great job, and you just make it so easy, and I just appreciate that more than I can ever tell you.
Well, it makes it easy when I've got a Lion legend sitting next to me that can do volleyball, softball, and I could probably bring you in on other sports as well. Last thing, Andy Jones, the Hall of Famer at UNA, the University of North Alabama, what makes this place so special?
The people, and for me, through the years, the athletes that I've coached and the coaches that I've coached with and coached against, the support that we've had through the years from faculty, and just those relationships that you build through the years, is what it's all about. The people are what it's all about.
Andy Jones, UNA Hall of Famer, 9 Gulf South Conference championships. Thanks for chatting with us on the Purple and Gold Hour.
Thank you so much, Ben. I really appreciate you.
We'll take a timeout. We'll keep the show rolling when we return. North Alabama and Jacksonville State getting set to play football here in about 45 minutes. We'll get into the countdown to kickoff show. We'll be back after this. This is the Purple and Gold Hour, presented by the University of North Alabama Foundation.
My whole life has been about making an impact. Not just on the field, but in the world around me. My high school Spanish teacher helped me find my true calling:
to educate and serve others all over the world.
I used to think the biggest college was the best place to start, but my search brought me to North Alabama. At UNA, my story matters, and so does my calling.
There you have it, UNA fans. Thanks for tuning in to another great hour of the Purple and Gold Hour presented by the University of North Alabama Foundation. This has been your inside look into the University of North Alabama. I'm Benjamin Ray, wrapping up this episode. I enjoyed chatting with Michelle Eubanks and Dr. Jeffrey Bibby on the year of the UNA woman. UNA, the first in the South to welcome women on campus. It's been a great celebration. They have a lot planned. To be sure and visit una.edu to get more information on some of the great activities they have planned. And a huge thank you to the Lion legend, the Hall of Famer, Andy Jones, for joining me to talk about her time at UNA. Andy Jones, one of the all-time greats at UNA. It's always great to get her on, and I love having her on our volleyball and softball broadcast. So it's been a great hour here on the Purple and Gold Hour. It's time to kick it to the stadium for the countdown to kickoff show. We'll take a quick time out. When we come back, Brian Neese will join me, and we'll get you prepped to North Alabama and Jacksonville State. Kickoff set for 5 p.m. We'll get things started when we return. This has been the Purple and Gold Hour, presented by the University of North Alabama Foundation.
This has been the Purple and Gold Hour, presented by the University of North Alabama Foundation. Thanks for listening, and remember that you can catch the Purple and Gold Show 2 hours prior to every football game right here on 98.3 WLX, the home of the Lions. Roar Lions!